All right, we've got a key race alert. Take a look at it. It's getting closer right now. Only 1.7% difference between Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg, 26% to 24.3%. That's as close as it's been in the last couple hours. Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren, they're in third and fourth place. Let's go over to John King. As we take a look at this, it's getting closer and closer. It was 3%, 2%, now 1.7%.
It's a 4,000 vote race as we get to close to 80% of the vote in. So since you were last here, what has happened? One of the places I said we were looking for earlier is Hanover, one of the college towns. Dartmouth is here. Bernie Sanders won it last time by a decent margin. It was closer in the place as well. Look at this. Pete Buttigieg wins. But here's the issue for Buttigieg as we go through these final towns, as we wait for the final towns. You win, but it's a net gain of what? 300 votes if you do the math there. So you're down 5,000. Now it's 4,200. The issue is when you win, you got to win a lot bigger if we're exchanging like this. But this is interesting to watch. You see this 18% here. This is one of the few places where Elizabeth Warren is impacting the race, the competition for progressive voters and younger voters, and Klobuchar and Buttigieg. But that's a good win here in the town right along the Vermont border where Sanders won last time. The other impact on the race has been down here, and we've been watching this swath along the Massachusetts border, just above it, over here to the seacoast here. Sanders won Portsmouth. Buttigieg is winning some of the smaller towns down here. Derry, which was blank when you were here just a few minutes ago, has come in. It reported everything at once, so it's up to 100%. Sanders wins. Buttigieg a close second. Again, you're in this race that's 5,000, then it goes to 41, then it goes to 42. You're winning, but there's 150 votes there between them. So the problem if you're Buttigieg and you're thinking, can I catch up now, is even if you win some of these towns, this race is running so close that you're picking up 100 or you're picking up 150, and then you lose 50 when Sanders wins the next one. So we're in this margin now, but 4,000 votes, Wolf, this is remarkable, especially, again, multi-candidate race is more complicated. Sanders won this in a walk 4 years ago. And so as people go through, what does this mean? Who turned out? Who didn't? This is very close.
Can we see statewide where the outstanding vote is?
Yes, we can. At least I can try to make it work. We got a little hiccup when we tried that last time. But if we're looking through here, the issue is actually I can show you this because one of the things we're getting in now because we're late. I'll show you the other scale in a minute. But this is almost, it's not unique, but it's a rare night in the sense that find me a place on the map that has reported votes. Because these towns are small, it's 100. So the vote we're missing is the gray. This light you're seeing here, these are places where it's a tie, 38 to 38 in this case here. So if you see this lighter gray, almost white, that's a tie, but this other gray is where the vote is out, and that's where it is. If you come over here and look, and you pop out this and take a peek, so this is 100% or less, 73% or less. And you come out here, that's it, just about everywhere. The vote we're missing is the gray. And again, when you go through these, you're waiting for them. You come up here to Conway. We're waiting to see this. We have nothing. This is ski country if you're familiar with New Hampshire. The issue is you go to these, these are very small towns. So somebody's going to win. And if the race is close and competitive like it is in neighboring towns, you win, and you win by a vote here. Or if it's first and third, 6 votes, you come down to these other towns. We're seeing this all night long. This one more dramatic, but still, you're looking at shy of 30 votes when you win them. So when you come out now, if you're trying to do the math, very small population up here. This is where race will be won or lost. It's 4,000 votes. You would have to say advantage Sanders, but meaning we're still going to do the math. Again, Sanders wins here, 150 votes. We come up here. This is the last big thing. We just saw Buttigieg win in Hanover. Durham, 1.2% population. This was a much bigger margin in a college town for Senator Sanders 4 years ago. We're waiting for that to come in. When we get it, I suspect we get all of it. And so in this late reporting, when it comes in, we're getting 100% of it. And so, again, no offense to anything from Concord and above, but the population center is down here. And this is where we're seeing this band along like I said, in Southeast is impressive for Buttigieg when you go back in time and just see how well Sanders did in A, his neighbors from Vermont, and B, down here last time where the population is. Sanders ran it up. And again, it's a 2-candidate race. It's 4 years ago. He was getting the progressive vote and the protest vote against Hillary Clinton. This is a much more complicated dynamic for all of the candidates. It's impressive for Buttigieg. 4,000 votes, 79%. This is why they make espresso.
Yeah, 79% of the vote in. So you still got 21% of the vote outstanding. If it's a separation of 4,082 votes between Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg, 1.7% difference, it's still possible that Buttigieg could emerge the winner.
He has to fill the rest of this map in down here. He has to win almost all of them, in the sense that, again, if you just come through some of these, and you're winning, some of these towns are so small. Sure, he's first and Sanders is third, so that's a net gain of 252 votes, right? Great, 252 votes, but how many times do you have to do that to get to 4,000? That's the issue right now for Buttigieg as you look through this. You want to count them, and because you see these little bands of all Buttigieg, it's more of a split and a checkerboard up here. We're going to wait, have the votes to come in, and do the math.
We're watching it very closely. We're getting closer and closer, John, to 11 p.m. on the East Coast. I think both of these candidates, Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg, they'd like to go out and speak and make their points, but I suppose they're waiting for results.
You want to claim bragging rights. You want to claim bragging rights anyway. You want to say, he will say, if he wins tonight, that he won New Hampshire, and he'll say he won the popular vote in Iowa, even though Buttigieg has the delegate edge. So he wants to say, by vote count, I won 2 in a row. That's what he wants to say. What does Buttigieg want to say? I came into Bernie Sanders' backyard. He's going to say, I came into Bernie Sanders' backyard and gave him a hell of a race. Either way, he'd like to say, I came into Bernie Sanders' backyard and beat him. One of the interesting conversations, just to give Mayor Buttigieg some credit, look along the Vermont border. Go back 4 years ago. Yeah. He is competitive. He is competitive everywhere in the state. And if you talk to people inside his campaign, especially now that this is this close, they point to her. The debate Friday night changed this race. The Buttigieg people thought when they came out of Iowa that they had a shot. At this, look how close they are. Her surge may have blocked him from getting there.
Yeah, we heard from Elizabeth Warren. We heard from Amy Klobuchar and from Joe Biden. We're still waiting to hear from Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg. We're expecting to hear from Buttigieg fairly soon, Anderson.
Yeah, and obviously we'll bring that to our viewers live, as well as Bernie Sanders. David Axelrod, the notion that Amy Klobuchar's rise after the debate took away from Buttigieg. Do you buy that?
Oh, 100%. When I was walking the lines at her event, most of the people were trying to choose between the two of them. They had just come from a Buttigieg event. They were coming to check her out. They were intrigued by her debate speech. And it was very, very clear that he was going to lose some votes to her as she moved up. And if she moved up significantly, then she would make it difficult for him to pass Sanders. He's doing pretty well given how well she's done. But she had a good night here.
Yeah, and she had a strategy, right? I mean, I think in the last 2 debates, she has squarely focused on Buttigieg on one of the vulnerabilities he has, which is his experience. So she had really tough exchanges with Pete Buttigieg in both of those debates, and I think you see that tonight from these results.
She also did a thing that women candidates are usually really loath to do, which was go after the double standard directly. The first time I saw her do it, I've been working with women candidates for most of my career. The first time I saw her do it, my heart kind of seized up, because you're not supposed to say that things are different for me than you. But she stood right there and said, if Mayor Pete were a woman, a 37-year-old small-town mayor who was a woman would not be receiving the kind of national accolades that he is receiving. And it seems not to have backfired.
Right. Yeah.
So that might be a lesson that can be applied more generally across the board, that we've reached a new era of that. At least I could hope.
One thing about Amy Klobuchar is that she stresses her experience, and in those exchanges she did, in these exit polls, he did do better, much better than her among voters who said that he would bring a needed change. And so the flip side of stressing your years of experience in the Congress is that the Congress isn't all that esteemed an institution, and people don't necessarily believe if you spent 20 years in Congress, you're going to be a force for change.
And sometimes, she sounds an awful lot like a senator, and that doesn't really help you very much on the national stage. But she did say to Buttigieg, quite directly, I'll put my experience up against yours. And you made fun of what we were doing in Washington for those last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I was doing what I had to do, and there was nothing more important than sitting there for those 2 weeks to vote on whether to convict a president. And so she's very direct. And I wonder, when it comes her way, which we'll see at the next debate next week, how she's going to do.
Can she take a punch?
Well, can she take a punch? Because she can sure give one.
Yeah,
There's competition as between these different lanes. The more progressive lane, which consists of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and then there's Mayor Pete and Amy Klobuchar and Joe Biden. if you add together the respective lanes, I think one thing that you'll find tonight is that the moderate candidates clearly came out on top to the detriment of the progressives. I think that's pretty significant about a Democratic primary fight.
Can
Yeah,
one
but
do
that
that, though? I mean, does that work to, to look at that and say, okay, well, moderates all lumped together and Sanders-Warren lumped together, the moderates are ahead? Or, I mean, it doesn't necessarily work that way.
I don't think people walk into the voting booth, I am voting progressive or I am voting moderate. I think that all polling indicates that it's less about these ideological lines and more about policies that are going to transform the lives of working people. And so you see also in these exit polls, right, a majority of the electorate wants universal health care, something like a Medicare for all. They want tuition-free public college and government-run health care, if you want to be more explicit about that. And it also was explicit about private insurance. And a majority of people wanted that in the state. So I think in addition to, a lot of the undeclared independents also swing for someone like Bernie, I think it's difficult to make it so that it's just in those lanes and it's spread out among several people.
To think that somebody who broke for Klobuchar in the last 48 hours would otherwise have been a Bernie Sanders voter. I think it's more likely they probably would have been a Pete Buttigieg voter.
Let me just point out, Pete Buttigieg is just about to speak.